Manx Radio's Update with Christian Jones.
Faster Mike, good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock on Monday the 19th of May. I'm Christian Jones and this is Update. Welcome into 30 minutes of all the latest news, sport and travel compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's newsroom tonight. Justice for Summerland campaigners are consulting lawyers to challenge the Attorney General's refusal to order a new inquest in the High Court. A major new housing and regeneration project has been approved in the heart of Douglas. And the Isle of Man TT kicks off a week today. We'll hear from Peter Hickman as his new team makes its debut at the world-famous races. As always, do get in touch if you want to comment on anything you hear. Text WhatsApp to 166 177. First of all, though, let's get the latest headlines with Siobhan Fletcher. Faster Mai.
The Justice for Summerland campaign group is consulting its lawyers to see if a decision by the Attorney General can be overturned if taken to the High Court. Last week, Walter Wannenberg confirmed he will not be directing any new inquests into the 1973 disaster. Campaigner Jackie Hallam says the group feels let down.
It's not an unexpected knockback. You know, we'd hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. And we do feel that this was the government's chance to do the right thing, and they didn't take it. This remains an outstanding debt.
A major housing scheme for Douglas has been narrowly approved by 3 votes to 2, despite objections from residents and unresolved land issues. The Westmoreland Village development includes 133 homes, community facilities and office space at the Cruckle House site. A Manx Radio investigation has revealed that during the month of April, there were a total of 773 missed appointments at local GP surgeries. The no-shows included appointments with GPs, practice nurses and associated services. Childminders who operate from their homes in Douglas say they are shocked after receiving letters from Douglas City Council informing them that all waste generated by their business is commercial and must be paid for separately. The letters say waste generated can't be included in household waste collections and is not covered by domestic rates. Further afield, the Conservative Party thinks the UK Prime Minister's new deal with the EU takes Britain back into the past. But Sir Keir Starmer insists the agreement cuts red tape and will boost the economy by £9 billion by 2040. There's no sign of the aid trucks expected in Gaza after Benjamin Netanyahu said he was ending a 3-month blockade, and a ceasefire in Ukraine is top of the agenda as the presidents of the US and Russia are due to speak on the phone this afternoon. They're your headlines. I'll be back with your news at 6.
Gurumaya, thank you for that, Siobhan. Let's take a quick look at the weather now, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Sunny intervals with just a small risk of an isolated shower this evening, light winds and a minimum temperature of 9 degrees Celsius overnight. Tomorrow, though, we'll see some good sunny spells, but there's also a chance of a few rather sharp showers developing at times. Light and variable winds, temperatures up to 18 degrees Celsius in the afternoon, and sunset tonight will be at 9:21.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshore Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshorevehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company, Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Approaching 5 minutes past 5 now, and a spokesperson for the Justice for Summerland's campaign says they're standing firm and are consulting lawyers to challenge the Attorney General's decision in the High Court. On Friday, the AG's office announced there'll be no new inquests into the 1973 Summerland disaster, which claimed the lives of 50 people in Douglas. Campaigner Jackie Hallam says they were hoping for the best, but were prepared for the worst.
We'd like to thank Mr Wannenberg for the time he's taken to consider our application. I will say that the reaction of the campaign to his questionable decision and the reasoning behind it is as you'd expect, really. It's one of disappointment, but it's not an unexpected knockback. You know, we'd hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. And we do feel that this was the government's chance to do the right thing, and they didn't take it. This remains an outstanding debt.
Going forward, what can happen, or is there anything that you guys can do or looking to do going forward?
We will be in obviously be in discussion with our lawyers, but we stand firm, you know. We feel quite let down, but families affected by this disaster have been let down since it happened. And it appears that Mr Wannenberg feels that the truth behind this disaster was sufficiently established at the time. And we don't share that belief, and more objectively, our lawyers don't share that belief. And if anything, it's galvanised our resolve. We stand firm and will be challenging this decision before the High Court. I can't speak for the UK MPs at the moment. This information came to light at the end of last week, but I certainly will be liaising with them this week. We feel as though the way that this has been handled for 5 decades has been disappointing. And I would like to say that if this was one of your relatives that had been affected in this way, then I rather feel as though your approach would be a lot different.
Jackie Hallam from the Justice for Summerland's campaign speaking there. And there's more details on that rolling at manxradio.com. 7 minutes past 5 now, and a major new housing and regeneration project in the heart of Douglas has been approved by the island's planning committee, but not without some controversy. Simon Richardson is with us now. He's been following the story. Faster my Simon, just tell us what's been approved and where exactly.
Faster my Christian. It's a development known as Westmoreland Village, centred on the site around Crookhall House on Domain Road. The plans include 133 new homes, that's a mix of apartments, townhouses and senior living units, along with 4 commercial units, a community pavilion and a scout hut, plus of course the refurbishment of Crookhall House itself, which will become office space.
And this is being developed by the Manx Development Corporation, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. MDC is the government-owned company set up to redevelop brownfield sites. This will be their second major scheme following Tide Clag, that's the redevelopment of the former nurses' home nearby. In this case, planning permission has been granted, but only if a legal agreement is signed, and that's key. It covers affordable housing, open space, road maintenance contributions, and also some quite complex land ownership matters.
So what is the issue with the land?
Well, MDC doesn't currently control all the land needed for the development. It still needs third-party agreements to secure some of it. And while it's offered to sell a 45-unit block to Douglas City Council for public housing, the council hasn't yet committed to buying it. The legal agreement can't force them either. It just sets out the terms.
OK, well, let's look at some of the opposition, because there has been plenty of that too, hasn't there?
There has, yeah. A number of concerns have been raised about parking, density, and the scale of the project. One objector told the committee the development would be over-intensive at the heart of the community and criticised assumptions that people living there won't have cars. But planners said these weren't in fact new concerns, and the application was approved by a 3-2 vote.
Fabulous. Just before you go, though, this wasn't the first time that application had been to the committee.
No, it was actually approved a little over a year ago, but it had to come back to address some technical issues, particularly around affordable housing and financial contributions. Now it's approved again, but crucially nothing can proceed unless that legal agreement is signed.
Simon Richardson, thank you very much for bringing us up to date.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Approaching 10 minutes past 5 now, and the Chief Minister says he's encouraged by the Public Service Workforce Report, which shows recruitment is taking place in frontline services. The document revealed that the public sector grew by 500, with the majority of those places in care. Alfred Cannon says this demonstrates the commitment to frontline services and dispels the myths that the government has been running amok with recruitment.
You can't escape the facts and the trends that we've seen now, which have been brought out by these two reports, that over the last 4 years or so, the public sector's grown by about 500 people. But the vast majority of that growth has been in the care sector. I think with about 365 people, there's been about 100 people put into education. And as we can see from the detail that you've just talked about there, that some of the nuances in terms of where those staffing vacancies have been filled. So on the one hand, I think what these reports have demonstrated is our clear commitment to frontline services. I think it's dispelled the myths that somehow, central government departments have been running amok with recruitment, because there's no evidence at all from that. But on the other hand, clearly we've added 500 more people to the government payroll. That itself then leads to questions and decisions that are needed in terms of the specifics around healthcare delivery, education, the growth that we've seen there, but also what else is government doing then to counterbalance that growth where it's been needed in those frontline services.
So does that then mean that this growth in frontline services could mean some trimming somewhere else?
Currently 120 roles that are currently being reviewed across government, and we've got the efficiencies programme that we have launched in terms of finding an extra £50 million over the next 5 years to effectively counterbalance some of that cost.
And in terms of those roles that are under review, are they lower paid roles, or are they more management type roles?
So they're not frontline roles. What I can tell you is they're not frontline roles, and they don't fulfil a statutory requirement. They're not legally required, but under statute. So they could be a variety of roles, depending. We haven't scoped that as to the specific level. So they could be senior managers, they could be more junior staff.
Chief Minister Alfred Cannon speaking there about the Public Service Workforce Report. Now, the Enterprise Minister has been grilled over the role of agencies in his department and the question of bonuses awarded to those agencies for their work. The question from a Tynwald committee came from Peel and Glenfaber MHK, Kate Law-Brennan.
I think it would be helpful if you could write to us and just let us know from a department perspective. Obviously, there is a role to oversee what the activities of the agencies are, just to let us know perhaps how the department assesses the activities of the agencies, how the department judges the success or the impact of particular campaigns, activities. Obviously there has been public awareness over contractual arrangements for incentives and bonuses and things, so I think it'd just be helpful to know how that is judged and overseen. Just a final question.
Sorry, I think on that point, I think again, obviously, as far as the physical structure is concerned, as you say, we have those individuals sitting on the boards from the private sector. Clearly, obviously, we have the chair, but we also have political members sitting on those boards as well. So there's always that, they have my delegation to be sitting on those boards to make sure that there's that political understanding of decisions are being made. That's fed back to the department, so we're always aware of the initiatives and schemes that they've planned. But clearly, it's up to them to set the year ahead's plans, which as you know, each individual agency publishes that separately, and it sets out what they're planning to do over that 12-month period, and they set out what job creation they think the sectors can develop through doing that. So that is very much the template that they set, and then we judge. We hold them to that process, basically, to say, okay, what's worked and what isn't working, what's been better than expected, what hasn't.
Minister Tim Johnston taking questions from a select committee on the subject of bonuses being paid to some of the agency's workers. And John Moss joins us now. Just remind us of what this whole bonuses situation is all about, because the Department for Enterprise has actually defended its use of more than £200,000 in bonus payments, didn't it?
You used the word grilled earlier. Well, this was a bit of a grilling. It came from the members of the committee, Morehouse, Lord Brennan, And Wannenberg in particular, John Wannenberg, was very robust in his questioning. These bonuses, the department say they're not extras, they are part of negotiated salary packages used to attract private sector talent. It happens in the world. They get promised bonuses if they produce the results, particularly in business development roles within their executive agents, like Visit Isle of Man, for instance, and indeed finance Isle of Man. The contracts are outside normal public sector terms, and they don't include pensions or full benefits. That's why they get given these incentives to make them, I suppose, work a bit harder. It's a blunt way of putting it. Last year, the number of people receiving bonuses rose from 3 to 7. The department says this was due to new roles being created and existing contracts being renegotiated. It stressed all payments are linked to pre-agreed objectives and approved internally by senior officials. That's a sticking point. While the department has defended the overall approach, it won't disclose the detailed performance criteria. During this evidence, we heard this phrase, we're going to take a step back and look at the agency model. So, watch this space.
John Moss, thank you very much for that insight.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Only a couple of things to be aware of today. In Douglas, temporary lights on the new Castletown roads between the Springfield Road and Annika Lane junctions, and that's for repairs to a collapsed wall. In Glenmona until the 22nd of May, so that is Thursday if I'm not mistaken. Temporary lights on the coast roads 24 hours a day for emergency manhole repairs. If there is anything that we've missed and you spot while you're out and about, do let us know as long as it's safe to do so. Text WhatsApp to 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com. Over at the Steam Packet, everything is looking all good over there, and over at the airport, all looking good on the arrivals and the departures board.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with Quayside. You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Approaching 17 minutes past 5 now, and in the past week it's been reported that the Isle of Man's average water use of around 375 litres per person per day, one of the highest in the British Isles. Well, it's actually National Water Week in the UK, which coincides, ironically, with one of the driest springs on record. Simon Richardson joins us again. He went along to Manx Utilities, the state-of-the-art water treatment works in Douglas, to find out more about the precious stuff that comes out of the taps.
This area here is where the 3 different waters coming down the 3 different mains. So some water comes from Clips and Carradoo, and most of the water comes from Baldwin Reservoir. We blend those waters together, and then we add a substance called ferric sulfate, and we adjust the pH of the water, and that allows us to take out all the dissolved impurities. And you can see here, this water swirling is the mixers. So the lime and the ferric sulfate's going in, and these have got high energy mixers to mix all that together.
It's a very complex process, but from this point onwards, it then goes into another section of the building, which we've just been into. And what happens there?
We inject this ferric sulfate, and then the water's stirred, and then we spend the rest of the time removing what we've formed. So as you can see the brown sludge that comes out of the water. It accumulates. We recycle that to get the water out, and then the clarified water, as it's called, goes forward to be filtered.
Now, the Isle of Man is very proud of the quality of its water, and I think with some justification. We're going through a long period of dry weather at the moment, and I think people are being warned to be more careful with water. Is it the issue that it's just the quantity of raw water that is maybe in short supply during dry weather, or is it just the volume of water you have to process given the high demand?
Well, that's a good question. It's a combination of the two. So when we have long dry spells, yes, obviously the levels in the reservoirs deplete, but what also happens is that the demand goes up. And sometimes when we get hot, dry weather, that demand can go up spectacularly, up by 30%, which puts a strain on the resources, but also on the infrastructure that's sending the water around the island.
It might be state of the art, but clearly it's somewhere there's a lot of background noise. Simon Richardson there reporting from Manx Utilities Water Treatment Works. 19 minutes past 5 now, and a political bid is being launched to stop Manx National Heritage's latest plans for the Laxey Wales new entrance hub. Douglas North MHK John Wannenberg wants Tynwald to call for the planning application to convert the small stone structure, which was built in 1986, to be scrapped. I began by asking him why he feels it's his place to do this, especially given the Laxey Well isn't in his constituency.
It may not be in my constituency, but of course it is on the Isle of Man, and we are all national politicians. So I have a vested interest in what we have to offer, and certainly the Laxey Well is possibly our greatest tourist attraction, our greatest engineering feat, and I think that whatever goes alongside it should be of equal stature.
And you just said equal stature. The wording of your motion is to have a replacement sympathetic design in mind that would be appropriate for the largest working water wheel. Do you have something?
Obviously not of a scale, but something which would reflect the quirkiness of the wheel, because it's full of curves and corners, and I think that something appropriate to that would complement it. It needn't be expensive.
So do you have a design in mind? Do you have something already in the back of your mind how it could look?
I don't, but I know that a shipping container type building would not be appropriate.
You mentioned that you are a national politician, so you have a vested interest, but do you think it's Tynwald's place to make a ruling on planning applications?
No, I don't, but I think you have a voice, and we have a voice for a reason.
But what would you say to people who might perceive this to undermine the planning process?
Well, I wouldn't use the word undermine. I would say contribute. I would say help. I would say we are a collection of voices from the outside who should be considered.
And just lastly, have you raised your concerns directly with Manx National Heritage?
No.
MHK John Wannenberg speaking there. And Manx National Heritage says it intends to follow the planning process, but it says that many people are in favour of the proposals.
Get the full story. Tune in to Manx Radio's newscast for in-depth interviews behind the headlines. Find the newscast now at manxradio.com or your usual podcast provider.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Let's turn our attention to sport now, because a week today is when the Isle of Man TT is set to begin. And we're starting to see more and more bikes roaming around the roads lately. I mean, have you noticed? I definitely have. Well, because the outright lap records holder at the Isle of Man TT says he welcomes the level of competition around him for top honours at the racing fortnight. 14-time winner Peter Hickman, who co-owns the new 810 racing squad with fellow competitor Davey Todd, also told Manx Radio about the challenges of setting up a new team.
Things just change, don't they? You know, all good things have to come to an end at some point. I've had a fantastic 4 years with the FHO racing team. It was time to make a change, and we made a change. So probably the most common misconception is people think we were forced to change when actually it was our decision to change. So it wasn't necessarily our choice to make our own team. That wasn't actually the plan, but decided not to stay with FHO. That was the first thing, and then we've ended up creating our own team. I've ran my own team and I've run my own bikes at the TT for the last couple of years, but not a super bike, not a big bike. So it's going to be a new thing for me as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
In today's environment, with rising costs in everything we do, motorsport is not a cheap sport in itself. How difficult is it these days to set up a team?
Yeah, it's expensive, that's for sure. You know, me and Davey have put our hands in our own pockets to get this thing going, and that's probably another thing that people don't realise. They think someone else is paying for it all, which they're not. So yeah, it's tough, but it's also something that I wanted to do. It's something Davey wanted to do. The PHR is something else that I want to do personally.
So much focus will be on the thousands, obviously with 810 racing, but once again, that is not going to be the only class you're going to be racing in this year.
No, I have, with my PHR performance team, I'm running the Trooper Triumphs, and we've also got the Swan Super Twin, which I rode last year and finished on the podium with it a couple of times.
How tough is it going to be to try and keep pace with some of those guys who are very much up there with you these days?
Yeah, I mean, the pace just keeps getting faster, doesn't it? More and more people are coming through, the boys are getting faster and faster. It's getting harder and harder. It never gets any easier, unfortunately. But no, it's good, you know. I think the competition's actually really healthy at the minute, and I think the rivalry is also really healthy as well. None of us want it easy. We all want to win, but we don't want to win easy. We want to, you know, you need to earn it. You know, in this place at the Isle of Man TT, you definitely earn it.
Peter Hickman speaking there, and let's stay with sport now because we're joined with Darren Timpson, a sports reporter. Fast am I, Darren?
Fast am I. Starting with football, Ramsey were crowned winners of the Manx Quality Sheds Hospital Cup after a 3-0 victory over Laxey on Saturday. Charlie Higgins scored a brace after Tom Chattel's opener to confirm his side regained the trophy in a repeat of last year's final. Elsewhere, the Masters FA Cup final took place on Sunday as Onken demolished Colby 5-1. Goals from Darren Hodgen, Kieran McNulty, Tristan Ringham and a brace from Stephen Priestnall secured the win for the veterans. And the finals action concludes tonight with the Cowell Cup. High scorers Russian will play Ramsey's under-21s at the Bowl with kick-off at 6:45pm. Russian have scored 18 goals in 3 rounds before tonight's final, while Ramsey needed penalties to beat Onken in the semi-final, which came after a second-half comeback against Corinthians in the quarter-final. In motorsport, Isle of Man trials rider Caitlin Adshead secured 2 third-place finishes in the FIM Trial GP Women's World Championship in Japan. The result sees the Islander move up to third in the overall standings with 4 rounds left. Competing over the 16th to the 18th of May in the town of Motegi, just north of Tokyo, Adshead had to compete with monsoon conditions during Day 1's round to claim 4th and 2nd place. Day 2 saw her finish in 5th and 3rd place to move her up in the rankings. Adshead will now travel to France to compete in the Women's Trial European Championship at Le Bresse on the 24th of May. In cycling, Ben Swift and Becky Story were in action over the weekend. Swift, the Ineos Grenadiers rider, claimed a 24th place finish in the general classification in 4 days of Dunkirk. Meanwhile, Story of Team Picnic Post-NL competed in the Itzulia Women in Donostia, Spain. She finished in 59th. And finally, in tennis, Island star Billy Harris has been drawn against British player Dan Evans in the first qualifying round of Roland Garros. The match will take place tomorrow.
Darren, thank you very much for that. You obviously are a big fan of the TT, is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Where is the best place to go and watch the TT, do you think?
Snaefeld's a pretty good place to watch it when they come down the hill at the end towards the Craignor Bar.
Okay, all right. I know that Beth Espy was on air earlier. She was trying to find the best place for this person called Tom, who was the first time he'd ever been to the Isle of Man. He was coming to see the TT as well. What would you give it? What advice would you give to Tom if he happens to still be listening?
Get there early if you're going to Snaefeld because it gets packed.
Okay, and also you need to bring something warm. It gets windy up there, surely?
Yeah, I mean, TT. I feel like weather over TT's never that great, to be honest.
No, exactly. All right, well, thank you very much. That's it for Update this evening. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher. Do remember, if there's something you heard tonight that you want to dive into in a bit more depth, head on over to manxradio.com. We've got a wide range of podcasts there, including the Manx Newscast. Up next is Phil Gorn with Agenda. He'll be followed by Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley from 6. After that, in Cottier, and then Dave Moore. Lewis will be with you from tomorrow while I'm tucked away in the Tynwald chamber, so I'll see you on Friday though. Until then, take care. Bye bye for now.